I choose option 1 and will use it throughout. The snow is coming down so hard it looks like the sky itself is trying to bury the parking ramp of Hennepin County Medical Center. I sit behind the wheel in my frozen car, still in scrubs that smell of betadine, coffee, and the lavender lotion Mrs. Kowalski from 4B always asks me to rub into her hands before she goes to sleep. The clock says 8:21 p.m. I have been awake since 4:45 a.m. My feet throb. My lower back is a clenched fist, and every blink feels like sandpaper. But I cannot seem to turn the key in the ignition. I just sit here, watching the wipers push useless half-moons through the accumulating snow, letting the silence press against the windows like a living thing. My phone lights up in the cuff holder. Family chat. I already know what it will say before I even unlocking the screen. Helen, we're having Olivia and Daniel and his parents for Christmas this year. There simply isn't room for you and Sophie at the table this time. Helen 30 seconds later, of course we still want you to cook. You do it best, sweetheart. The words feel like a slap delivered with a smile. I stare at them until the screen goes dark, then light it again just to be sure I read it right. A third message appears from my father. Charles, don't forget my new noise-canceling headphones. The Bose ones. Thanks, kiddo. My hands start shaking so hard the phone almost slips from my fingers. I roll the window down an inch, the cold bites my face, but at least I can breathe. The air tastes metallic, sharp, clean. I suck it in like a drowning person, finally breaking the surface. 3 years ago, I sat in a different parking lot, this one in front of a notary public in St. Paul, signing divorce papers while 2-year-old Sophie slept in her car seat behind me, clutching a stuffed Thomas the Tank Engine. I remember thinking, as I scrawled my maiden name again for the first time in years, that going home to Minneapolis would fix everything. My parents would help. My sister would be thrilled to be an aunt. We would be surrounded by people who loved us. I was so naive I almost laugh out loud now, except it would come out as a sob. Instead I just sit here remembering the exact expression on Helen's face the day the developmental pediatrician said the word autism. Not shock, not sadness, just a tiny tightening around the mouth. The same look she used to give when the country club sent the wrong floral arrangement for the spring luncheon. Then the smile snapped back into place like a theater curtain. We'll make sure she learns to act normal, she'd said in the parking lot afterward, already reaching for her phone to Google cures. No one needs to know. I have spent 12 years trying to make sure no one knows. 12 years smiling while Helen introduced my sofes as our family recipe. While Olivia handed out the batik cupcakes, I paid for with my credit card and accepted compliments for her impeccable taste, while Charles asked me to drive him to yet another quick specialist appointment for his back. Somehow, all my always fell on my only day off. The snow keeps falling. I watch it cover the windshield completely, turning the world into a soft white blur, and something inside me finally snaps. Not with noise, but with a clean, quiet click, like a bone setting itself after years of being out of joint. I do not cry. I just turn the key back slowly out of my space and drive home to Sophie. That night, after I carry my sleeping girl from the car and tuck her into bed, I spread everything across the kitchen table like evidence in a trial phone, laptop, every receipt I have bothered to keep, bank statements, screenshots, Venmo history, the works. The blue light of the screen turns my hands ghostly as I scroll back through years of one-sided giving. A text from last Easter, Helen's. Everyone's coming at 3. Can you be here by 7 a.m. to start the lamb? Love you. A PayPal notification from Olivia's engagement party venue deposit, $450. Another for the custom floral arch, Wars $270. Another for the string quartet Olivia forgot to budget for to $800. I open the calculator and start adding. groceries for Sunday dinners I cooked in their kitchen while they sat in the den watching football. Gas money when Charles's Lexus needed new tires. The $200 here, $600 there for Olivia's bar exam review course, a $900 for Helen's little facelift recovery spa weekend that somehow only I was expected to fund. The final number stares back at me. 18,732 over the last 24 months alone. My current balance $40.11.63. I laugh then it comes out cracked and ugly and perfect. I make a new folder on my desktop called TREH. Into it goes every text, every email, every photo of Helen beaming next to a cake I baked at 3 a.m. after a 12-hour shift. Every screenshot of Olivia posting my banana bread recipe as Grandma Helen's secret. I back it up to 3 different clouds and email a copy to myself at work. Then I go to bed and sleep without dreaming for the first time in years. The next morning Sophie wakes up talking about the difference between a 4884 big boy and a 484 northern. She uses the full terms, not the nicknames, because that is how her brain likes things. Exact, orderly, beautiful. I listen to every word while I make her oatmeal exactly the way she likes it. 2 tablespoons brown sugar, cinnamon in the shape of a smiley face, no raisins ever. She flaps her hands when she gets to the part about the articulated frame, and I do not tell her to stop. I just watch the joy move through her body like music. My phone has 37 missed calls. I silence it and take Sophie to school. At work, I ask Tamara if she'll cover for me if Helen calls the floor looking for me. She doesn't even ask why. She just says, "Say less, babe. I got you." I do not go to Charles's birthday dinner that weekend. Instead, Sophie and I build the biggest blanket fort in the history of blanket forts and watch documentaries about the Union Pacific until we both fall asleep on the carpet. Her head on my chest, my heart beating slow and steady for the first time in forever. Helen's voicemails go from syrupy concern to icy fury to tearful martyrdom in the space of 4 days. Olivia posts a throwback photo of the 4 of us at Christmas 2012. Helen and Charles in the center, Olivia on Charles's lap, me in the background holding the tray of appetizers, smiling like a caterer who knows she won't get to eat until everyone else is finished. Caption: Family is everything. I do not respond. I block, I mute, I delete, I breathe. Dr. Kumar finds me in the break room a week later. Your mother called the hospital. He says gently. Told administration you're having a nervous breakdown and kidnapped your daughter. He pauses, studies my face. I told them I've never seen a more stable human in my life. Take the vacation days you're owed, Rebecca. Go somewhere beautiful. I booked the Waldorf Astoria in Chicago that same afternoon. 2 nights, Christmas Eve dinner, Christmas brunch, the whole ridiculous, glorious package. I used the money I had saved for Helen's Christmas gifts, a leather-bound planner she hinted about for 6 months, and the money I had saved for Olivia's wedding shower favors. I do not feel guilty. I feel airborne. The morning we leave, Sophie wears her bright red coat with the train buttons she picked herself. She carries her sketchbook, her noise-canceling headphones, and a tiny suitcase she packed entirely by herself, everything arranged by color and category. The conductor kneels down to her level when we board the Empire Builder and says, "Welcome aboard, Captain Sophie." She beams so hard I think her face might actually crack open with happiness. We get a roomette. I splurge because I want her to know what it feels like to have space that is just ours. She presses her face to the window the entire way, narrating every freight train we pass, every grain elevator, every frozen river. I do not tell her to use her inside voice. I just listen and marvel at how much world there is when you finally stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's table. Chicago welcomes us like it has been waiting. The doorman at the Waldorf calls Sophie, Miss Sophie, and tips his hat. The concierge hears her ask about the model railroad at the Museum of Science and Industry and personally calls to secure timed tickets for Christmas Day when everything else is closed. The housekeeper leaves a plate of chocolate, dipped strawberries, and a note that says, "Enjoy your first Christmas together. Just the two of you." On Christmas Eve, we ride the L train just because we can. Sophie counts the stops out loud and flaps so hard the whole car smiles. A teenager gives up his seat for her without being asked. An old man tells her his grandfather worked on the Milwaukee Road and shows her a faded tattoo of a Hiawatha locomotive on his forearm. Nobody stares. Nobody sighs. Nobody suggests medication or therapy or trying harder. They just let her be exactly, perfectly herself. That night we dress up. Sophie in the sparkly silver dress we found at Macy's, me in an emerald sweater that makes me feel like a stranger in the very best way. We eat in the grand dining room under chandeliers that look like frozen fireworks. Sophie orders macaroni and cheese off the children's menu, and the waiter brings it in the shape of a locomotive without being asked. She cries happy tears into her napkin. I cry too, but quietly so she doesn't notice. At 10:17 p.m., my phone buzzes with a Chicago number I don't recognize. I answer because I'm curious who would call this late on Christmas Eve. Ems Lawson. This is Officer Ramirez with the Chicago PD. We received a call about a possible missing child and a wellness check. I can hear Helen in the background, hysterical, saying she's my mother and I've kidnapped my own daughter and I'm mentally unstable. I hand the phone to Sophie. "Aye," she says cheerfully. "We're at the fancy hotel with the big treat, and I got macaroni train. Merry Christmas." Officer Ramirez laughs so hard he has to mute the call. When he comes back, he says, "Ma'am, your daughter sounds pretty kidnapped to me. You folks have a good night." I hang up laughing so hard I cry again. Christmas morning we go to the museum. Sophie spends 3 straight hours in the model railroad exhibit, talking to the volunteers, asking questions that leave them blinking in astonishment. One of them, an old man with oil under his fingernails, takes her behind the ropes and lets her run the 1930s Zephyr herself. She comes back to me glowing like a lantern. That afternoon we take a horse-drawn carriage around the city just because the line isn't long and because we can. The driver lets Sophie hold the reins for 2 whole blocks. She whispers to the horse the entire time, telling him about articulated steam locomotives and boiler pressure and the difference between wall starts and Baker valve gear. The horse flicks an ear, perfectly content. On the train ride home, 2 days later, Sophie falls asleep against my shoulder, clutching the paper engineer's hat the conductor gave her on Christmas morning. I look out at the winter fields flying past and realize I am not afraid anymore. Not of Helen's tears, not of Olivia's silent treatment, not of Charles's disappointment, not of the silence where their voices used to be. I am afraid of going back to being small. So I don't. Spring comes early that year. The snow melts in dirty rivers along the curbs, and the robins return like they never left. Sophie and I plant tulips in coffee cans on our tiny balcony because the landlord finally said yes. They come up red and yellow and fierce. Olivia texts one Tuesday in April found a 1930s Lionel diner car at an estate sale in Edina. Mint condition, can I bring it over? Coffee. I stare at the message for a long time. Then I type back Tuesday works. 10 a.m. at the French place on 50th. Sophie has a dentist appointment at noon. She shows up looking thinner, eyes red-rimmed. She's been in therapy twice a week since January. Daniel backed out of the wedding 2 weeks after Christmas, when his psychologist father sat the whole family down and explained, in calm clinical terms, what narcissistic family systems look like. Olivia moved out of my parents' house in February. She lives in a studio now and waitresses at a diner that plays 1940s jazz. She hands Sophie the diner car wrapped in tissue paper. Sophie gasps like it's made of solid gold. Olivia watches her unwrap it with something like awe. I used to think if I was just good enough, perfect enough, they'd love me the way they loved. She stops. Swallows. The way they were supposed to love both of us. I nod. I know. We drink our coffee. Sophie sits between us, coloring the menu with the crayons the waitress brought without being asked. Olivia says quietly, "I'm sorry I let you carry everything. I liked being the pretty one. It was easier than admitting I was scared too." I reach across the table and squeeze her hand. "You were a kid. We both were." Charles meets us for ice cream the following Saturday. He brings Sophie a book about the California Zephyr and actually reads the captions out loud when she asks him to. His hands shake when he turns the pages. He tells me Helen has started seeing someone. A therapist, not a cosmetic surgeon this time. He says the house is very quiet. I say, "Good, summer comes." Sophie and I fly to San Diego because she wants to see the seals bark and the pandas eat bamboo in real life. We stay in a hotel with a balcony overlooking the ocean, and she falls asleep to the sound of waves instead of my mother's guilt trips. I sit outside until dawn writing the blog that now has 27,000 followers. The comments are full of people who finally said no, who took their kids and left, who blocked the numbers and breathed for the first time in decades. I read them and cry every single night. Not from pain anymore, but from recognition. Fall again. Sophie starts 3rd grade and has a teacher who lets her give a 40-minute presentation on the evolution of diesel-electric propulsion. The whole class sits mesmerized. She comes home floating. One Sunday in October we host a potluck on our little balcony. Dr. Kumar brings curry that makes the whole hallway smell like heaven. Mrs. Thompson from 3B brings her famous lemon bars. 3 women from my support group bring their kids and their stories and their laughter. We eat off paper plates and nobody cares. Sophie explains to everyone why the GG1 electric locomotive is the most beautiful ever designed, and nobody tells her to hush. Someone asks follow-up questions. Someone else takes notes. I look around at these people, my people, and realize the table is plenty big enough. Later that night, after everyone leaves and Sophie asleep, with her new diner car tucked under her arm, I open my journal for the first time in months. I write only one line: we were never the problem. We were the solution all along. I close the book, turn off the light, and sleep the sleep of the truly, finally free.